The first light has not yet reached the eastern edge of the desert. The stars still rest above the wide valley, and the quiet water of the Nile moves almost without a sound. A soft breeze slips across the river, carrying the coolness that only exists for a little while before another warm day begins. The air smells faintly of wet mud, river reeds, and fresh earth. Somewhere in the darkness, a bird stirs, then settles again. Most homes remain asleep. Inside small mud brick houses, families lie on woven reed mats beneath light linen cloth. The thick walls have gathered a little coolness during the night, making the rooms pleasant for a few precious hours before the sun returns. A clay oil lamp burns low in one corner, its flame growing smaller as the oil is slowly used. Shadows stretch quietly across rough plaster walls. Outside, narrow streets wait in silence. Dust rests undisturbed upon the ground. Simple wooden doors remain closed. Baskets lean against walls exactly where they were left the evening before. Donkeys stand quietly beside small courtyards with their heads lowered. Even the dogs seem unwilling to disturb the peaceful darkness. Only a few people have already awakened. Among them is a man whose work begins before almost everyone else. He is neither a great noble nor a famous official whose name will one day be carved upon temple walls. He lives an ordinary life, though his daily task quietly touches nearly everyone living beside the river. Each morning, before the markets become busy, before farmers lead oxen toward the fields, before bakers fill the streets with the warm smell of fresh bread, he walks toward the Nile to measure its water. His footsteps are slow. His sandals press softly into the cool earth as he follows a familiar path. He has walked this same road hundreds of times. Perhaps thousands. He no longer thinks about every turn. His body remembers the journey even before his thoughts fully awaken. The river has become an old companion. He knows where the reeds grow thickest. He knows where fishermen usually leave their boats tied with worn rope. He knows which stones remain slippery after cool nights and which paths stay dry throughout the seasons. Nothing surprises him anymore. Yet every morning feels slightly different. Some mornings the wind arrives from the north, carrying cool air that ripples gently across the water. Other mornings the river lies so still that stars appear reflected upon its surface like tiny lamps floating beneath the sky. He notices these small differences without speaking. There is no audience waiting to hear his observations. Only the river. Only the birds. Only the quiet beginning of another ordinary day. As he walks, the eastern horizon slowly becomes lighter. Not bright. Only a soft gray that gently separates the land from the sky. The distant desert hills begin to appear little by little. Palm trees become dark shapes standing quietly beside irrigation canals. Date clusters hang motionless beneath long leaves. A fisherman nearby pushes his small wooden boat into the water without hurry. He has also learned that rushing serves little purpose here. Fish cannot be persuaded by impatience. The Nile has always followed its own rhythm. The man measuring the water nods politely. The fisherman returns the greeting with a gentle smile. Neither speaks. Morning silence is respected. Words can wait until the sun has climbed higher. The measuring place stands not far ahead. It is simple. Stone steps descend carefully toward the river. Each step has witnessed countless mornings like this one. Their edges have become smooth from generations of careful feet. Tiny marks carved into the stone reveal the changing height of the Nile across many years. This place is known well by local officials. Farmers also know it. So do tax collectors, temple administrators, scribes, boat captains, builders. Even children sometimes hear adults discussing the river's height while preparing the evening meal. Because the river decides much more than where water flows. It quietly shapes nearly every ordinary life across the valley. If the water rises well, fields become rich with dark fertile soil. If it rises too little, canals grow shallow. The earth becomes harder. Harvests shrink. Families notice smaller baskets of grain. Bread becomes thinner. Meals become simpler. If the river climbs too high, villages watch carefully. Water can reach places where people prefer dry ground. Walls soften. Paths disappear beneath muddy water. Boats replace walking for a little while. So every morning begins with watching. Carefully. Patiently. Without hurry. The man reaches the first stone step. He pauses. The cool air touches his face. He looks across the wide river before beginning his work. The Nile appears peaceful today. Gentle ripples move toward the shore. A cluster of reeds bends slowly with the current. Far away, another small boat drifts quietly downstream, its single sail hanging almost still in the calm morning air. He breathes deeply. This moment belongs only to him. Soon other workers will arrive. Soon scribes will begin writing. Soon officials will ask questions. Soon farmers will gather near the canals. But for now, only the river speaks. He walks down several steps until he reaches the water's edge. The stone beneath his sandals feels cool. He studies where the water rests against carefully carved markings. His eyes have practiced this simple observation for many years. A younger person might hesitate. Might lean closer. Might measure twice. He simply watches. The difference between one mark and another seems very small to anyone else. To him, it tells a quiet story. He has learned to notice tiny changes. The river is always moving. Never exactly the same. Even when it appears still. He reaches for a smooth wooden measuring rod kept nearby beneath a sheltered stone covering. The wood has darkened over many seasons. His hands fit naturally around it. He lowers the rod into the calm water with practiced care. Small circles spread gently across the surface before fading away. He waits. There is never reason to rush. Water settles when allowed to rest. The reading becomes clear. He lifts the rod. Tiny drops slide slowly back into the river. He studies the markings cut into the wood. Another ordinary measurement. Another quiet beginning. Soon these simple numbers will travel far beyond this peaceful riverbank. A scribe waits nearby beneath a small shelter built from wooden posts and woven reeds. His lamp still burns faintly beside a low writing table. Fresh sheets of papyrus lie carefully stacked beneath a cloth to protect them from morning moisture. The scribe has also begun this routine countless times. He prepares his reed pen. Small cakes of black ink rest inside shallow containers. He mixes a little water into the ink until it reaches the familiar thickness his hand prefers. Every movement feels calm. Measured. Almost peaceful. Writing requires patience. The Nile offers no reward for haste. The measuring man quietly shares today's reading. The scribe nods. His pen touches the papyrus with steady confidence. Each careful line joins thousands that came before. Day after day. Season after season. Year after year. Long columns of observation slowly grow into history. Not the history of kings. Not the history of battles. But the gentle history of water. The kind of history that quietly feeds entire villages. The scribe blows softly upon the fresh ink. Morning light now reaches the edge of the writing table. The darkness begins slipping away. Birdsong grows a little louder. More footsteps appear along nearby paths. Women carrying empty jars walk toward the river to collect fresh water before the day becomes hot. Children still rubbing sleep from their eyes follow older brothers and sisters. A baker passes carrying sacks of grain toward his workshop. Already the smell of yesterday's ashes lingers around his oven. Soon fresh loaves will fill the village with warm scents. Nearby, another family begins grinding grain between heavy stones. The slow scraping sound joins the growing music of morning life. Oxen are led from small enclosures. Their broad hooves leave gentle prints in the dusty ground. Farmers speak quietly while adjusting wooden yokes across strong shoulders. Nobody moves quickly. The heat has not yet arrived. There is still time to begin gently. The man who measured the river remains near the stone steps for a while longer. His official work is finished for the moment, but habit encourages him to stay. He enjoys watching the valley awaken. He watches fishermen untangle nets that dried overnight. He watches smoke begin rising from dozens of cooking fires. He watches sunlight slowly climb the trunks of date palms. Each morning resembles the one before it. Yet no morning is truly identical. One day a child laughs while chasing ducks along the shore. Another day a merchant arrives with heavily loaded boats from distant villages. Some mornings large flocks of birds circle above shallow water searching for breakfast. Other mornings the river belongs almost entirely to quiet reflections. These small differences give gentle shape to ordinary days. The man notices them all. Not because he must, but because paying attention has become part of living. Years of observing water have taught him that nothing remains exactly still. Even silence carries small changes. The breeze grows warmer. The first rays of sunlight touch the highest temple walls far across the river. Their pale stone begins glowing softly beneath the new day. Workers sweeping courtyards pause briefly to admire the peaceful light before continuing their simple tasks. Life moves forward one quiet moment at a time. And somewhere beneath the steady rhythm of footsteps, grinding grain, distant voices, and gently flowing water, tomorrow's measurement is already waiting, just as patient as today's. The morning continues to unfold without hurry. The light becomes softer before it becomes brighter, spreading across the valley as though it has all the time in the world. The Nile reflects the pale sky in long ribbons of silver, broken only by the gentle movement of boats and the quiet circles made by fish rising close to the surface. The man remains beside the measuring steps for another little while. His work has been recorded. The numbers now rest safely on fresh papyrus, drying in the cool air beneath the scribe's careful watch. Nothing more needs to be written just yet. Still, neither man rushes to leave. The river has always encouraged patience. Its current cannot be hurried. Its seasons cannot be persuaded. Those who spend their lives beside its banks slowly begin to move at the same gentle pace. The scribe carefully rolls the finished sheet. He ties it with a thin strip of linen before placing it inside a smooth wooden box that protects the records from dust and damp air. The box itself is worn from many years of use. Tiny scratches cover its surface, each one made by ordinary hands carrying it between the measuring place and the temple offices. No one thinks much about the box. It is simply another useful object. Yet inside it rests a quiet memory of countless mornings. Measurements taken while children were born. Measurements taken while old people quietly passed away. Measurements recorded during years of rich harvests and years of lean fields. The river remembers everything, but people must write if they hope to remember as well. The measuring man walks slowly toward the village. The dusty path follows the edge of the water before turning gently inland. Palm trees cast long shadows across the road. Their leaves whisper together whenever the breeze passes through them. Ahead, the village is fully waking. Smoke curls from low chimneys built into flat roofs. The smell of baking bread drifts through the streets. It is one of the first scents that fills the air every morning. Warm flour, fresh dough, wood smoke, a little ash. The familiar smell reaches people before they ever see the ovens. Inside one small bakery, a woman presses soft dough with both hands. She has already been awake for several hours. Before the stars began fading, she ground grain into flour using a heavy stone mill. The work was slow and steady. Her shoulders have grown strong from repeating the same movements almost every day since childhood. The flour clung lightly to her hands. It settled upon her simple linen dress. It floated through the air in tiny clouds whenever she poured another basket into the mixing bowl. Now the dough has rested. She shapes it carefully before placing each loaf against the warm inner wall of a clay oven. The heat fills the small room. Outside, the morning remains cool enough to enjoy. Inside, the day has already become warm. She hardly notices anymore. The rhythm of baking has become part of her life. Nearby, her youngest daughter fans the fire with slow, steady movements. She watches the flames dance beneath the glowing wood. Occasionally she glances toward the doorway where sunlight slowly stretches across the floor. Soon neighbors will arrive. Some will trade grain. Others will exchange vegetables or fish. A few will bring small pieces of woven cloth or simple pottery. Coins are not always needed. Trust travels through the village almost as often as goods themselves. The measuring man passes the bakery. The woman smiles. She already knows why he has been near the river. Everyone does. People may not know the exact number written by the scribe this morning, but they understand the importance of his quiet routine. Sometimes someone asks politely, "How does the river look today?" He answers simply, "It is calm." Or perhaps, "It has risen a little." Or, "Very little has changed." There is no need for long conversations. The Nile will reveal its intention slowly over many weeks. One measurement alone is only one morning. Many mornings together become a season. He continues walking. The village roads grow busier with every passing moment. A potter carries freshly shaped bowls toward an open yard where they will dry beneath the rising sun. The wet clay still smells of river mud. His fingers remain stained dark brown despite washing them before leaving home. He has worked with clay for so many years that his hands seem to understand its softness before his mind does. Each bowl begins almost the same. Yet each one carries tiny differences left by human hands. Some are slightly wider. Some slightly deeper. Some lean almost invisibly to one side. Perfect symmetry belongs to no ordinary workshop. Neither does it matter. Families need useful bowls, not perfect ones. Across the street, an elderly man repairs woven fishing nets. He sits upon a low wooden stool beneath the shade of a sycamore fig tree. His eyesight is not as sharp as it once was. Even so, his fingers continue working with remarkable confidence. Thread passes through thread. Knots tighten. Broken places disappear. His grandson sits nearby watching carefully. The boy asks quiet questions. The old man answers slowly. Not because he wishes to teach quickly. Because every skill deserves time. He explains how different fish pull against the net in different ways. Some twist. Some dive. Some struggle close to the surface. The net must be repaired with patience or tomorrow's catch may slip away. The measuring man greets them with another gentle nod. His morning has become a string of familiar greetings. Most people know one another. Children know which families bake bread before sunrise. Women know whose goats produce the richest milk. Boat builders know which fishermen repair their own nets. Scribes know which merchants arrive exactly when they promise. Life moves quietly because people depend upon each other. No single person carries the village alone. The streets become brighter. Sunlight reaches the mud brick walls. Their rough surfaces glow softly with shades of pale gold and warm brown. The walls are thick. They keep homes cooler during the hottest hours. Small windows allow little direct sunlight inside. Most rooms remain dim even at midday. Families appreciate the shade. Outside, the desert never forgets the sun. Inside, people build small pockets of comfort. The measuring man reaches his own home. It stands beside several others sharing a narrow lane. Its walls have been repaired many times. Fresh mud covers cracks left by old seasons. The roof is made from wooden beams covered with reeds and packed earth. It has weathered many floods and many summers. His wife is already preparing the morning meal. The bread she baked yesterday rests inside a woven basket. She tears one loaf into pieces before placing it beside fresh onions, dates, and a small bowl containing thick bean stew warmed over gentle coals. The smell is simple, comforting. Nothing about the meal is extravagant. It does not need to be. Ordinary food gives ordinary strength. That has always been enough. Their oldest son has already left to help clean irrigation canals. During this part of the year, keeping the channels clear requires constant attention. Small piles of reeds collect along the edges. Mud slowly settles where water moves more slowly. Branches carried downstream become trapped against narrow openings. Every blockage steals precious water from distant fields. So groups of workers gather with wooden shovels, woven baskets, and patient determination. They remove mud one basket at a time. The work is heavy. Their feet sink into wet earth. Their backs ache before the morning grows old. Still, they continue. Each cleared channel means healthier crops. Healthier crops mean fuller storage jars. Fuller storage jars mean calmer winters. The measuring man thinks about them while eating his breakfast. His own task lasts only a short part of each morning. Theirs continues beneath the climbing sun. He feels grateful. Not because his work is easy. Every task carries its own weight. But his shoulders remain dry while others spend long hours standing ankle deep in mud. After eating, he drinks cool water stored inside a porous clay jar. Tiny drops of moisture cover its outer surface. The slow evaporation keeps the water pleasantly cool despite the growing heat. He pauses for a moment beneath the shade near his doorway. The village is fully alive now. Children carry bundles of reeds. Women balance water jars gracefully upon their heads. Goats wander through narrow lanes searching for fallen leaves. A donkey complains loudly before settling into patient silence once again. Farther away, hammering begins inside a carpenter's workshop. Wood strikes wood in slow rhythm. Not frantic. Not loud. Simply steady. The sound blends naturally with everything else. Beyond the village, fields stretch toward the river. Green patches of grain sway gently whenever the breeze arrives. Farmers bend low among the crops. Their simple linen garments already cling slightly to their backs. Morning coolness is disappearing. The day quietly grows warmer. A pair of oxen pull a wooden plow through moist earth. The animals move slowly. Their breathing is calm. The farmer guiding them speaks only occasionally. The oxen know the work. The path is familiar. Furrow after furrow appears across the field. Nothing about the task changes quickly. Farming teaches people to think in seasons rather than hours. Nearby, several women kneel beside vegetable gardens. They loosen the soil with wooden tools before watering young plants carried carefully from shaded beds. The vegetables seem small now. Soon they will fill woven baskets carried back toward the village. Patience is always rewarded more kindly than haste. The measuring man often thinks that farming and measuring the river are cousins of the same quiet work. Neither produces immediate results. Both ask people to notice gradual change. A single morning tells very little. Many mornings tell the whole story. As the sun climbs higher, the river itself changes appearance. The silver light fades into deeper shades of blue and green. Tiny waves sparkle brightly beneath the stronger sunlight. Birds fly low over the reeds before settling among tall grasses where insects have begun their busy day. Fishermen cast their nets farther from shore now. Their boats drift almost silently. Each fisherman watches the water with calm attention. They know the habits of fish almost as well as the measuring man knows the habits of the river. One fisherman gently lifts his net. Only a few fish shimmer inside. He smiles anyway. Tomorrow may be different. Or perhaps later today. The Nile rarely gives exactly the same gift twice. Far downstream, larger boats move slowly with broad linen sails. Merchants stand upon their decks watching the shoreline pass. Their cargo includes baskets of grain, bundles of flax, jars of oil, pottery wrapped carefully in woven reeds, and heavy blocks of stone destined for distant workshops. The river joins villages together more gently than any road. Dusty paths can become rough. Boats simply follow the water. The current carries stories as easily as goods. By midday, the morning's measurement has already reached several officials inside the temple complex. A senior scribe carefully copies the number into another record that stretches back farther than anyone living can remember. Shelf after shelf holds rolled papyrus. Each roll contains rows of careful handwriting. Thousands of quiet observations. None appear remarkable by themselves. Together they become the memory of generations. The senior scribe runs his finger lightly along older entries. Some were written before he was born. Some before his own father first learned to write. Different hands. Different ink. Different years. The same river. Outside the temple walls, the village continues its peaceful rhythm beneath the growing warmth. And somewhere, hidden beneath the bright reflection of the afternoon sun, tomorrow's water is already making its slow journey north, carrying with it another small story that will be measured at first light by the same patient hands. By the time the sun stands high above the valley, the cool air of dawn has become only a memory. The warmth settles gently over the fields first, then across the village streets, and finally upon the wide surface of the Nile itself. The river still moves with quiet confidence, but its morning softness now carries a bright shimmer beneath the midday light. The measuring man has found a place in the shade. Like many others whose earliest work has already been completed, he sits beneath a broad sycamore tree where the leaves soften the heat. The shade is not deep, but it is enough. A light breeze occasionally slips through the branches, bringing with it the scent of damp earth from the canals. He removes his sandals for a little while. His feet have carried him over worn stone steps, dusty roads, and packed riverbanks since long before sunrise. The cool ground beneath the tree offers a welcome rest. Around him, the village continues its slow and steady rhythm. Nothing feels rushed. Even the busiest workers understand that the strongest heat asks people to move carefully. A carpenter works with measured strokes rather than quick ones. A potter pauses now and then to wipe the sweat from his forehead before returning to the spinning clay. Women carrying water jars choose the shaded side of the road whenever they can. The day teaches everyone the value of patience. Across the valley, the fields stretch in gentle shades of green. The grain sways softly whenever the breeze reaches it. Near the edges of the fields, irrigation canals sparkle beneath the sunlight. Their water moves slowly, turning corners that were shaped long ago by careful hands. Some canals are narrow enough to step across. Others are wide enough for a small boat carrying baskets of vegetables. Each one depends upon the river. Each one quietly reflects the morning's measurement. The number written by the scribe may seem small upon a sheet of papyrus, but it echoes through every channel that carries life into the fields. Several young workers stand knee-deep in one of the canals. They use broad wooden shovels to remove fresh mud that settled overnight. Their movements are slow but steady. Every shovel of wet earth is lifted into woven baskets waiting along the bank. The baskets grow heavy. Two workers lift each one together before carrying it away. The mud will not be wasted. Some of it will strengthen the walls of homes. Some will repair ovens. Some will become part of new storage bins where grain will rest after the harvest. Very little beside the Nile is truly thrown away. The river gives many gifts. People simply learn how to use them. Not far away, an older farmer kneels beside a young boy. The child watches as the man gently presses damp soil around a row of growing onions. The farmer speaks in a quiet voice. He explains that roots prefer firm earth but not hard earth. Too loose, and the plants grow weak. Too tight, and the water cannot reach them well. The boy listens carefully. His hands are already stained with mud. He presses the next handful of soil with great concentration, trying to copy every movement. The older man smiles. No praise is spoken. None is needed. The lesson itself is enough. Many skills in Egypt pass from one pair of hands to another without ever being written down. The measuring man has seen this happen his entire life. His own father once guided him to the stone steps by the river. He remembers those mornings with surprising clarity. He had been little more than a boy. The stone seemed enormous beneath his feet. The carved markings looked mysterious, almost magical. He wondered how such small differences in water could matter so much. His father had simply smiled. He had rested one weathered hand upon the boy's shoulder and said quietly, "The river speaks softly. You must learn to listen softly." Those words remained with him through every season. Years passed. His father grew older. His own hair slowly turned the color of dry reeds. One day the morning walk to the river became his responsibility. Nothing dramatic marked the change. There was no ceremony. No celebration. Just another sunrise. Another careful measurement. Another ordinary beginning. That is how many important things happen. Almost unnoticed. The afternoon grows warmer still. Inside many homes, families close wooden shutters to keep out the brightest light. Thick mud brick walls help preserve the coolness gathered during the night. Children too young to work lie quietly upon woven mats. Some sleep. Others listen while grandparents tell gentle stories. The stories are not grand adventures. They are simple memories. They speak of seasons when the flood came early. Of years when fish seemed especially plentiful. Of neighbors who built strong boats. Of weddings held beneath cool evening skies. Memory flows through families much like the Nile flows through the valley. Always moving. always continuing. In one shaded courtyard, an elderly woman carefully repairs a linen garment. The fabric has grown thin after many years of use. Rather than replacing it, she patiently strengthens the worn places with neat stitches. Her needle moves slowly. Sunlight falls across the cloth in narrow bands. A small clay bowl beside her holds smooth stones used to weigh the fabric against the gentle breeze. Nothing about the work is hurried. Every stitch quietly extends the life of something valuable. Nearby, fresh bread cools upon woven trays. Its warm smell drifts into the street. A little goat wanders close, sniffing hopefully before being gently guided away by a laughing child. The laughter lasts only a moment before quiet returns. Even joy feels gentle here. The measuring man eventually rises from beneath the sycamore tree. The shade has been welcome, but another habit calls him toward the river once again. His official duties for the day are complete. Still, he often walks beside the water during the afternoon. Not because anyone asks him to. Simply because the river has become part of his daily thoughts. The path feels familiar beneath his sandals. Dust gathers lightly around each step. Dragonflies dart above the reeds, their delicate wings catching flashes of sunlight. Tall white herons stand motionless in the shallows. Their patience seems endless. They wait. The river teaches waiting better than any teacher. At the measuring steps, the stone has become warm beneath the sun. The carved marks remain unchanged since morning. He runs his fingers lightly across them. Some cuts in the stone are newer. Others were carved generations ago. The oldest ones have softened with time, but they are still visible. He wonders briefly about the people who first made them. Their names are forgotten. Their faces disappeared long ago. Yet their careful work remains useful every single morning. There is comfort in that thought. Ordinary work can last longer than anyone expects. A young apprentice approaches carrying a bundle of fresh reeds. He has recently begun helping the scribes. Most of his day is spent preparing writing materials rather than writing itself. He cuts reeds to the proper length. He smooths their tips with careful strokes. He mixes ink. He dries finished sheets of papyrus in places where the breeze can reach them without carrying dust. The work seems small. Yet without it, the scribes could not continue. The apprentice bows politely. The measuring man returns the greeting. The young boy glances curiously toward the carved markings. Do they ever stop changing? He asks quietly. The older man smiles. No. Not even for one day. No. The apprentice looks toward the water. It seems almost the same. It often does. The older man pauses. Then he kneels beside the stone. He points toward the gentle ripples touching the lowest steps. The river is always moving, he says softly. Sometimes it changes enough for everyone to notice. Sometimes it changes only enough for those who return every morning. The apprentice nods. He studies the water a little longer. Perhaps he understands. Perhaps not yet. Some lessons need many seasons before they settle inside a person. The afternoon slowly begins its quiet journey toward evening. The strongest heat eases almost without anyone noticing. Shadows grow a little longer. The breeze becomes slightly cooler. Workers straighten their backs after long hours in the fields. They wipe dust from their arms and faces before gathering their tools. Oxen are led away from the plows. The animals walk slowly, grateful for rest. Their broad hooves leave deep prints in the soft earth beside the canals. Women harvest bundles of herbs from small gardens near their homes. Fresh mint, coriander, young onions. The green leaves carry a pleasant scent that mingles with the warm smell of baked earth. Children begin returning from errands. Some carry small bundles of firewood. Others balance empty baskets that had held vegetables during the morning market. A few race each other through the narrow streets before older voices gently remind them not to stir too much dust. The village softens as daylight slowly mellows. The measuring man continues walking along the riverbank. He passes fishermen preparing for the evening catch. Morning fishing and evening fishing each have their own quiet rhythm. Nets are carefully inspected once more. Knots are tightened. Small tiers repaired. Wooden oars are rubbed smooth where countless hands have held them. One fisherman sits upon the edge of his boat sharpening a bronze hook. The scraping sound is slow and even. His young daughter sits nearby weaving fresh cord from flax fibers. Neither speaks very much. They have worked together many evenings. Silence has become another kind of conversation. Farther along the bank, several boats loaded with grain drift gently toward a landing place. The men aboard use long poles to guide them carefully through the shallower water. They move with practiced ease. Every bend in the river is familiar. Every hidden sandbar remembered. The grain will soon be carried into cool storage buildings where it will wait for the months ahead. The morning's river measurement quietly follows every sack. No one speaks of it now. Yet everyone understands its importance. A healthy flood promises fuller storehouses. A weaker flood encourages greater care. The numbers written at dawn slowly become decisions made many weeks later. As the light begins to soften into the warm colors of late afternoon, the measuring man pauses once more beside the gentle current. The Nile continues its endless journey northward, never hurried, never still, carrying cool mountain waters from lands far beyond the horizon. Tomorrow, before the first birds begin their morning songs, before bread fills the air with its familiar scent, and before the village opens its wooden doors to another day, he will return once again to these quiet stone steps. The river will have moved, if only by the smallest amount. And he will be there to notice. The afternoon slowly gives way to the gentler hours of evening. The bright light that covered the valley only a short time ago begins to soften. The harsh edges of walls become smooth again. Palm trees cast longer shadows across the dusty roads, and the air grows easier to breathe with every passing moment. The Nile reflects the changing sky. Where the water had sparkled with brilliant white light beneath the midday sun, it now glows with quiet shades of gold. Every small ripple catches the fading sunlight before allowing it to drift away downstream. The measuring man remains near the river. He has nowhere urgent to be. His family knows that he enjoys these quiet walks before returning home for the evening meal. It has become another part of his daily rhythm, as familiar as waking before dawn or climbing the measuring steps each morning. He follows a narrow path beside the water. Tall papyrus plants sway gently beside him. Their green stems rise high above the riverbank, their feathery tops moving softly whenever the evening breeze arrives. Tiny insects drift through the warm air, and dragonflies continue their graceful flights just above the surface of the water. The sounds around him are gentle. An oar dips into the river with slow, steady strokes. A heron calls somewhere among the reeds. Farther away, a donkey lets out one long complaint before falling silent again. None of these sounds disturb the peace. They simply belong to the valley. Across the river, smoke rises from cooking fires. Each thin column climbs quietly into the still air before slowly disappearing into the evening sky. The smell reaches the riverbank only faintly, carrying hints of bread, onions, lentils, roasted fish, and warm clay ovens. Soon every household will prepare its evening meal. The busiest work of the day is nearly finished. Farmers leave the fields in small groups. Their sandals are coated with dry dust and damp earth. Their linen clothing has darkened with sweat after many hours beneath the sun. They walk slowly, speaking in calm voices. No one wishes to hurry. The day has already asked much from their bodies. One farmer carries a wooden hoe across his shoulders. Another balances a woven basket filled with onions and beans. A third leads two patient oxen toward their enclosure. The animals seem just as ready for evening as the people. Their broad heads remain lowered. Their slow breathing matches the peaceful rhythm of the fading day. As the measuring man watches them pass, he thinks once again about the morning's reading. It was only a small change. Barely enough for most people to notice. Yet he cannot help returning to it in his thoughts. Not with worry. Simply with quiet attention. He has learned that the river speaks little by little. One day's measurement rarely means much alone. A week begins to reveal a pattern. A month tells a clearer story. An entire season speaks with confidence. His work has taught him not to expect sudden answers. Instead, he has learned to trust slow understanding. That lesson has quietly spread into the rest of his life. He no longer expects children to become adults quickly. He does not expect newly planted fields to become harvests overnight. He does not expect walls to remain strong forever without repair. Everything changes. Almost everything changes slowly. Near the edge of the village, several women gather around a public oven. Fresh loaves are being removed one by one using long wooden paddles. The bread is round and flat, its surface lightly browned by the heat. Steam rises gently as each loaf cools. The smell fills the nearby streets. Children wait patiently with woven baskets. Some stand on tiptoe to watch the baker. Others quietly brush flour from their clothing while speaking with friends. An elderly woman tears a small piece from one loaf to test its texture. She nods with quiet satisfaction. The baker smiles. No words are needed. Good bread speaks for itself. The measuring man buys a loaf for his family. The baker wraps it inside a clean linen cloth to keep it warm during the short walk home. He thanks her and continues along the narrow lane. The village is changing with the light. Workshops that echoed with hammering during the morning now grow quiet. The carpenter carefully places his tools inside a wooden chest. He brushes sawdust from the workbench before covering unfinished pieces with woven mats. Tomorrow they will wait exactly where he leaves them. The potter carries freshly fired jars into a shaded storage room. Each vessel gives a soft hollow sound as it touches the others. Rows of bowls, water jars, oil containers, and grain pots line the shelves. Some will remain in the village. Others will travel by boat to distant settlements along the Nile. Every object begins as river mud. Every object returns, in one way or another, to the river's story. Nearby, a linen weaver folds finished cloth into neat bundles. The loom stands silent now. Only a few loose threads remain stretched across its wooden frame. The room smells faintly of flax fibers and warm wood. Light enters through a small window, creating bright squares upon the floor. Dust floats lazily through the air. The measuring man pauses outside the workshop. He has known the weaver for many years. When they were boys, they often raced each other along the riverbank. Now both have gray beginning to appear in their hair. Their conversations have become slower. Their laughter quieter. The weaver steps outside carrying a folded piece of linen. "It has been another warm day," he says. "It has." "And the river?" The measuring man smiles gently. "It continues to be itself." The weaver nods. A good answer. Neither asks for more details. They have shared enough seasons together to understand what those few words mean. The river does not rush. Neither should those who live beside it. As the sun lowers farther, birds begin returning to the trees. Flocks of ibises cross the sky in graceful lines. Small swallows dart above the water chasing insects that gather in the evening air. The sound of wings briefly fills the quiet before fading again. Nature follows its own dependable schedule. No scribe records these flights. No official measures them. Yet they happen every evening just the same. The measuring man reaches his home. His wife has arranged the evening meal upon a low table. The fresh bread rests beside bowls of lentils, cucumbers, onions, and roasted fish caught earlier in the day. A small dish of dates waits at the center. Their youngest daughter pours cool water from a clay jar into simple cups. The family gathers without ceremony. There is comfort in familiar routines. They eat slowly. The children speak about their day. The oldest son describes clearing mud from an irrigation gate that had become blocked by reeds. His younger sister proudly explains how she helped her grandmother grind grain without spilling any flour. Their mother listens with quiet attention. The measuring man says little. He enjoys hearing the voices of his family after the long peaceful hours beside the river. Occasionally he smiles. Sometimes he asks a gentle question. Mostly he listens. Outside, evening settles across the village. The heat finally begins to loosen its grip upon the land. Neighbors sit outside their homes where the air feels cooler. Some repair sandals by fading light. Others mend baskets or sharpen simple farming tools. Children play quietly beneath the watchful eyes of their parents. The village no longer carries the energy of work. Instead, it breathes with the calm satisfaction of another ordinary day completed. As darkness slowly approaches, lamps begin appearing one by one. Small clay vessels filled with oil cast warm golden circles upon walls and floors. Their gentle flames flicker whenever the breeze enters through open doorways. Shadows move softly across mud brick walls. Nothing is brightly lit. The darkness remains welcome. The stars begin to appear before the last light has fully disappeared from the western sky. One by one they reveal themselves. The measuring man steps outside after the meal. He looks upward. The clear desert air makes the stars seem especially bright. He has watched this same sky every evening for longer than he can remember. The constellations return in their seasons just as faithfully as the flood. The moon slowly rises above the eastern horizon. Its pale light spreads across the Nile until the river becomes a ribbon of silver once again. The transformation is quiet, almost unnoticed. A fisherman pushes his small boat away from the bank. Night fishing will soon begin. His lantern swings gently from a wooden pole near the bow. Its tiny flame creates a trembling reflection upon the dark water. Farther away, another lantern appears. Then another. Small points of warm light drift slowly along the river. From a distance they almost resemble stars floating upon the current. The measuring man watches them for several peaceful moments. He knows that while most of the village sleeps, a few people will continue working through the night. Some fishermen, temple guards, a baker preparing tomorrow's bread, a mother comforting a restless child. Life beside the Nile never completely stops. It simply grows quieter. He walks once more toward the measuring steps. Not because there is work to do. Only because the place has become part of him. The stone feels cool again beneath his sandals. The same steps that were touched by the morning chill now hold the coolness of evening. The river murmurs softly below. Moonlight reveals only the nearest ripples. Everything beyond them fades gently into darkness. He sits upon one of the upper steps. There is no need to speak. No one is waiting. No record needs to be written. He simply listens. The gentle movement of water against stone. The distant sound of oars. The quiet whisper of reeds bending in the night breeze. These sounds have become as familiar as his own breathing. Tomorrow, long before sunrise paints the eastern sky with its first pale colors, he will rise once again. He will leave his warm home while most of the village still dreams. He will follow the dusty path beneath the fading stars. He will greet the Nile as he always has. And somewhere in the quiet darkness, while the valley sleeps and the river continues its endless journey north, the water level will have changed ever so slightly, just enough for another careful morning, another patient observation, and another small line of ink upon waiting papyrus. The night deepens with quiet confidence. The last traces of evening fade gently from the western sky, leaving the valley beneath a blanket of soft darkness. The moon climbs a little higher, and its pale light settles across the Nile like a thin sheet of polished silver. The current continues its patient journey, never asking to be seen, never asking to be heard, simply moving as it has for countless generations. The measuring man remains seated upon the stone steps. The coolness rising from the water eases the warmth that lingered in the stones after the long day. He folds his hands together and allows himself a few peaceful moments before returning home. Around him, the world grows quieter still. The fishermen have drifted farther from shore. Their lanterns appear smaller now, scattered across the dark river like tiny stars that have settled upon the water instead of the sky. Every now and then, one lantern sways gently. A fisherman adjusts his net. Another lifts a woven basket from the bottom of his boat. The sound is almost too soft to notice. Wood touches wood. Water slips against the hull. A paddle enters the river with slow care. Nothing disturbs the silence for very long. The reeds whisper as the breeze passes through them. Somewhere along the opposite bank, a frog calls once before becoming still again. Farther away, hidden among the date palms, insects fill the warm darkness with a steady chorus that seems to have no beginning and no end. The measuring man closes his eyes for a moment. He has learned that the Nile can be understood not only by watching it, but also by listening. During the flood season, the current speaks with greater strength. During the months of lower water, it moves with quieter voices. Strong winds create one sound. Calm nights another. Even without opening his eyes, he can often tell whether the breeze has changed direction. Years of early mornings have sharpened senses that most people hardly notice. He rises slowly. The stone steps remain behind him as he follows the familiar path toward the village. Moonlight stretches across the dusty road, revealing every gentle curve. The shadows of palm trees lie long and still upon the ground. His sandals make only the softest sound with each step. Most homes are already quiet. Wooden doors are closed. Small oil lamps burn behind narrow windows, their warm glow escaping through tiny openings in the mud brick walls. Inside one house, a grandmother softly hums while rocking a restless child. The melody is simple. It has no audience beyond the little boy slowly drifting back to sleep. Perhaps her own grandmother once sang the same tune. Perhaps it has traveled quietly through many generations, never written upon papyrus, never carved into stone, remembered only by listening hearts. The measuring man smiles as he passes. The sound reminds him of evenings from long ago. He remembers lying beside his brothers beneath a light linen cloth while his own mother sang gentle songs after the day's work was finished. Outside, the wind had moved through the palms just as it does tonight. The Nile had continued flowing just as it does tonight. Some comforts change very little across the years. Farther along the street, a baker is already awake once more. The ovens that rested during the evening now glow with fresh fire. Tomorrow's bread begins long before tomorrow's sunrise. He kneads the dough patiently. His hands move with quiet certainty. The flour sticks lightly to his arms. A clay bowl filled with water rests beside the wooden table. Nearby, his oldest daughter prepares bundles of dry reeds for the fire. Neither speaks much. Words feel unnecessary during these peaceful hours. They understand each movement before it happens. The measuring man pauses at the doorway. The warm smell of fresh dough drifts into the cool night air. The baker notices him and offers a gentle nod. "So early again," the baker says softly. "So late for you," the measuring man replies with a quiet smile. The baker chuckles. Our days meet in the middle. For a moment they stand together beneath the stars. One man's work is ending. The other's has already begun. The valley depends upon both. The measuring man continues home. His house rests quietly beneath the moonlight. Inside, his family sleeps peacefully. His wife has left a small oil lamp burning near the doorway. Its flame dances gently whenever the night breeze slips through the window. He removes his sandals before stepping inside. The floor feels pleasantly cool beneath his feet. He drinks a little water from the clay jar standing in the corner. The water has remained cool throughout the day. Tiny drops of moisture still cover the outside of the vessel. He lies down upon his woven reed mat. The simple pillow beneath his head is filled with soft linen scraps gathered over many years. There is nothing luxurious about it. Yet after a day of walking, standing, and watching the river, it feels wonderfully comfortable. Sleep comes easily. Outside, the Nile continues flowing through the darkness. Hours pass quietly. The moon slowly crosses the sky. The fishermen return one by one. Their boats glide toward the shore carrying modest catches. A few baskets hold silver fish shimmering beneath lantern light. Others contain only enough for one family's meal. No one complains loudly. The river gives what it chooses. A pair of temple guards walk slowly along the outer walls of the sanctuary. Their sandals scrape softly against worn stone. Bronze-tipped spears rest comfortably in their hands. Their duty is peaceful tonight. Most nights are. They pause occasionally to look toward the stars or listen to the gentle sounds of the river beyond the buildings. The temple itself sleeps. Massive columns disappear into shadow. Stone statues watch silently beneath the moonlight. Their carved faces seem calm in every season. Inside one quiet room, shelves filled with rolled papyrus rest untouched. Among them lies the record written only yesterday morning. Soon another sheet will join it. Then another. The collection grows little by little. No single scroll appears important by itself. Together they become a patient memory stretching farther than anyone alive can remember. The hours before dawn are the coolest of the entire day. A fresh breeze arrives from the north. It slips through narrow streets and across open courtyards. Palm leaves rustle softly. Small animals settle deeper into sleep. The stars remain bright overhead. Gradually, almost too slowly to notice, the eastern horizon begins to change. Black becomes deep blue. Deep blue softens into gray. The measuring man's eyes open naturally. No rooster has called yet. No voices fill the streets. His body has learned this hour so completely that it wakes before the village itself. For a few moments he remains still. He listens. The familiar silence greets him. He hears the distant murmur of the Nile, the whisper of wind outside, the quiet breathing of his family. These sounds have welcomed him every morning for many years. He sits up carefully so as not to wake anyone. His movements are practiced. He folds his sleeping cloth neatly. He washes his face with cool water from a small basin. The freshness chases away the last traces of sleep. His linen garment waits exactly where he placed it the evening before. He shakes away a little dust before putting it on. His sandals stand beside the doorway. Their leather has become smooth from years of walking the same roads. Before leaving, he glances once more at his sleeping family. The children remain wrapped beneath their light coverings. His wife sleeps peacefully beside the fading glow of the oil lamp. The sight brings him quiet comfort. Every morning begins with gratitude for ordinary things. A peaceful home. Healthy children. Work that serves the valley. The chance to walk beside the river once again. He steps outside. The village still belongs to the night. Only a handful of lamps remain burning. The baker's oven glows warmly in the distance. A donkey shifts quietly in its enclosure before becoming still again. The air feels wonderfully cool against his face. He breathes deeply. The scent of damp earth rises from the canals. The dusty road beneath his feet still carries a little moisture gathered during the night. Above him, the brightest stars slowly begin to fade. The measuring man follows the familiar path without needing to think. Every bend feels known. Every stone seems to greet him like an old friend. Ahead, hidden beyond rows of palm trees and sleeping homes, the Nile waits in the gentle darkness. It has continued flowing throughout the entire night. Its level has changed, perhaps only by the width of a finger, perhaps by even less. Most people would never notice. That is why he rises before dawn. That is why the carved steps have waited patiently for generations. That is why the scribes prepare fresh ink every morning. The river tells its story one quiet day at a time. As he nears the water, the first bird offers a single clear call into the cool morning air. Another answers from somewhere among the reeds. The eastern sky grows just a little brighter. The stone steps emerge slowly from the darkness. The familiar markings become visible once again. The wooden measuring rod rests where it was carefully placed the day before. Everything is ready. Another peaceful morning is beginning, almost exactly like yesterday, yet never truly the same. The measuring man smiles softly as he descends the cool stone steps, carrying with him the quiet attention that has shaped his life, prepared to listen once more to the gentle voice of the Nile before the rest of Egypt awakens. The first light of dawn spreads so gently that it is difficult to say exactly when night has ended. One moment the stars still seem close enough to touch, and the next they quietly fade into the pale sky. The eastern horizon becomes a soft wash of gray, then faint blue, while the desert hills slowly reveal their familiar shapes. The measuring man pauses at the top of the stone staircase. Every morning begins with this small pause. Not because he must. Because it has become a habit as natural as breathing. He lets his eyes rest upon the river before taking another step. The Nile looks peaceful. Its broad surface carries the colors of the waking sky, smooth in some places and gently rippled in others. Thin ribbons of mist drip just above the water where the cool air of the night meets the warmth that still lingers beneath the surface. The world feels suspended between sleeping and waking. Even the birds seem uncertain whether to sing loudly or remain quiet for a few moments longer. He begins his careful descent. The worn stone steps feel cool beneath his sandals. Tiny drops of moisture have gathered during the night, making the oldest stones slightly darker than those above them. He knows exactly where to place his feet. Years of practice have taught him every uneven edge. His father once warned him to respect these steps. "They remember more mornings than we ever will," he had said. As a young boy, those words had sounded mysterious. Now, after so many seasons, they simply feel true. The measuring rod waits beneath its small shelter. The wood is smooth where countless hands have held it. Its lower end bears faint marks left by water, sand, and time. The measuring man lifts it carefully. He never rushes this first moment. The river deserves a steady hand. He lowers the rod into the quiet water. The movement creates only the gentlest circles. They spread outward, touching the stone before disappearing into the current. He waits. The river settles. His eyes move slowly from one carved mark to another. He has learned never to force an answer. Water becomes clear only when left undisturbed. After a few peaceful moments, the reading reveals itself. A change. Small. Almost too small for an unfamiliar eye to notice. He smiles very slightly. The river has risen again. Only a little. Barely enough to cover another thin line upon the stone. Yet every increase matters. Every small rise joins yesterday's rise. And the day before that. The story grows one careful page at a time. Behind him, quiet footsteps approach. The young apprentice who had asked questions the afternoon before carries a folded cloth beneath one arm. Inside it are fresh reeds prepared for the scribes. He stops a respectful distance away. "Good morning," he says softly. "And to you." The apprentice watches without speaking. The measuring man finishes his observation before lifting the rod from the water. Tiny drops sparkle briefly in the growing light before falling back into the Nile. "Has it changed?" the boy asks. "It has. Much." The older man shakes his head gently. "Enough." The apprentice looks again toward the stone markings. He narrows his eyes, trying to see the difference. "I think I would miss it." "You would." The answer carries no criticism. Only kindness. "I missed it too, when I was your age." The apprentice smiles. That comforts him. The measuring man rests the rod across the upper step and points toward one narrow carving in the stone. "Do you see where the water touched yesterday?" The boy leans forward. After a moment he nods. "I think so." "And today?" He studies the river again. Slowly his expression changes. "Oh. There. Yes. It moved. Only a little." "Yes." The older man nods. The Nile often teaches with very small lessons. The apprentice remains quiet. He seems pleased not because he has learned something quickly, but because he has finally noticed what had been hidden in plain sight. The scribe soon arrives carrying his familiar wooden box. His pace is calm. There is no need to hurry. The river has already waded through the night. It can wait another few moments. He places the box upon the low writing table beneath the reed shelter. Morning light has not yet reached the papyrus. The lamp still burns softly beside him. He unties yesterday's writing cloth, revealing neat stacks of fresh sheets prepared the evening before. Each one feels smooth beneath his fingers. He mixes fresh ink. A little water. A little black pigment. The familiar scent rises gently from the small clay dish. His reed pen has already been trimmed to a fine point. He tests it with one careful stroke upon a scrap piece of papyrus. Satisfied, he looks toward the measuring man. Without unnecessary words, the morning's number is spoken. The scribe writes. his hand moves with quiet confidence. Each sign appears exactly where it belongs. The apprentice watches every movement. Perhaps one day he will sit at this same table. Perhaps another young boy will stand beside him asking the very same questions. So much of life continues this way. Not through grand announcements. Not through sudden changes. Only through patient repetition. The first true sunlight touches the highest palm leaves. Golden light slowly slides downward, reaching the temple walls, the rooftops, and finally the riverbank itself. The mist begins to disappear. Birdsong grows louder. The valley awakens. Women carrying empty water jars appear along the path. They greet the men with quiet smiles before walking toward the lower steps. One woman fills her jar carefully. The water pours smoothly, making a pleasant sound inside the clay vessel. She places a folded cloth upon her head before lifting the heavy jar with practiced ease. Years of daily work have made the movement graceful. Her young daughter watches closely. She tries lifting a much smaller jar of her own. It wobbles. She laughs quietly. Her mother steadies it with gentle hands. "There is no hurry," she says. "You will grow stronger." The little girl nods. Together they begin the walk home. The measuring man watches them disappear along the dusty path. He thinks about how many ordinary mornings are shaped by learning. A father teaching a son. A mother guiding a daughter. An older worker showing a younger one how to hold a tool, repair a basket, tie a fishing net, or judge the flow of water. Knowledge rarely arrives all at once. It settles gently, like the morning light spreading across the valley. Soon the fishermen begin arriving. One boat glides toward the shore carrying woven baskets filled with fresh fish. The catch is modest but good. Silver scales catch the sunlight as the fish are sorted upon damp reeds spread across the ground. A merchant waits nearby. He examines the baskets carefully. Not suspiciously. Simply thoughtfully. He knows several families are expecting fresh fish today. The fishermen know him well. Their conversation is quiet. Prices are discussed calmly. A few fish are exchanged for grain promised after the next market day. Trust remains one of the strongest forms of wealth in the village. Nearby, an elderly fisherman sits repairing an oar. A long crack has appeared near its handle. Rather than carving a new one immediately, he binds the damaged place with carefully prepared strips of leather. His grandson watches every movement. "Will it last?" the boy asks. "For a while. And then we repair it again." The boy seems satisfied. He has grown up in a world where almost everything is repaired before it is replaced. A patched basket. A mended net. A strengthened sandal. A cracked water jar sealed with fresh clay. Nothing useful is abandoned without first being given another chance. The measuring man appreciates this way of living. He sees something similar in the river. Each season leaves its marks. Each flood reshapes the banks. Yet the Nile continues. Always renewed. Always familiar. As the morning grows brighter, more villagers arrive along the river. Children chase each other near the reeds until older voices gently remind them not to run too close to the water. A shepherd leads a small flock of goats to drink. The animals lower their heads one after another, creating soft ripples that spread across the surface. Several washerwomen kneel upon smooth stones, beating linen garments gently against the wet rock before rinsing them in the flowing water. Their conversation rises and falls like birdsong. Never loud. Never hurried. The rhythm of their work blends naturally with the sounds of the river. The measuring man knows that by midday these same riverbanks will feel entirely different. The cool freshness of dawn will give way to warm sunlight. The paths will become busier. The shade beneath the palms more valuable. But for now, this brief hour belongs to gentle beginnings. He takes one last look at the carved markings. The fresh measurement has already become part of the temple's growing record. Tomorrow another line will be added. Then another. The stone itself asks for nothing. It simply waits. Patient through floods. Patient through droughts. Patient through the passing of generations. The measuring man places the wooden rod back beneath its shelter. He brushes a little river sand from his hands. The apprentice closes the writing box. The scribe carefully rolls the newly written papyrus. Together, without ceremony, they begin walking toward the village. Behind them, the Nile continues its endless journey, carrying cool waters from distant southern lands toward the northern sea, whispering another quiet chapter that only those who rise before dawn will ever hear. The path from the measuring steps to the village feels different with each passing hour, even though the stones never move and the palm trees stand where they always have. At dawn, the road belongs mostly to quiet footsteps. Now, as the morning grows older, more people appear along the way. The silence remains, but it is gently filled with the sounds of ordinary life beginning once again. The measuring man walks beside the scribe and the young apprentice. They have traveled this same path together so many times that conversation comes only when it feels natural. No one feels the need to fill every quiet moment with words. The apprentice carries the wooden writing box carefully against his chest. He has begun to understand that it holds more than papyrus and ink. Inside are small pieces of memory. Each scroll protects a morning that would otherwise disappear into time. He looks toward the older scribe. Do you remember the first measurement you wrote? The scribe smiles before answering. I remember the feeling much more clearly than the number. The feeling. I was afraid my hand would shake. The apprentice laughs softly. But it didn't. It did. The older man chuckles. Only a little. The measuring man smiles as well. We all begin that way. The apprentice looks from one man to the other. And now? The scribe glances toward the river. Now my hand is steady because the river has taught it to be. They continue walking. A few moments pass before anyone speaks again. The apprentice thinks quietly about that answer. Perhaps he understands only part of it. That is enough. Some lessons become clearer after many seasons. As they approach the village, the smell of fresh bread once again drifts through the air. The bakers' ovens have been busy since long before sunrise. Round loaves now cool upon woven reed trays arranged outside the bakery. Steam rises gently from their warm surfaces. A young boy helps arrange them in neat rows. He counts each loaf carefully beneath his breath. Not because anyone asked him to. Simply because he enjoys knowing how many there are. His mother watches with a gentle smile. When he loses count after someone carries 2 loaves away, he begins again without frustration. There is plenty of time. Across the street, 2 elderly women sit together beneath a shaded awning. Between them rests a wide basket filled with onions. Their hands move steadily as they peel away the dry outer skins. The papery layers flutter to the ground whenever the breeze catches them. Their conversation is slow. Sometimes they speak. Sometimes they simply work. Years of friendship have taught them that silence can be shared as comfortably as words. One woman remembers a flood from many years ago. The water reached the old fig tree. The larger one. No. The one that fell during the storm. Oh. The other nods. I remember now. The memory settles between them like another quiet visitor. Neither feels the need to tell the whole story. A few simple words are enough. The measuring man continues toward the temple storehouse. Although the morning's measurement has already been written, the senior scribes often compare new records with those from earlier seasons. They enjoy seeing the slow conversation between one year and another. The temple complex stands peacefully in the growing sunlight. Its stone walls have already begun gathering warmth. Tall columns cast long shadows across the courtyard. Workers sweep away the fine layer of dust that settled overnight. The soft sound of reed brooms against smooth stone echoes gently through the open spaces. No one hurries. Even sweeping has its own rhythm. Inside a shaded room lined with wooden shelves, the senior scribe waits. He is older than the measuring man. His beard has become almost entirely white. His eyesight is not as sharp as it once was, but his memory remains remarkably clear. The younger scribe places the rolled papyrus upon the low table. The senior man unties the linen cord with patient fingers. He studies the fresh writing. His eyes move carefully across each sign. After a moment, he nods. A careful hand. The younger scribe bows his head slightly. Thank you. The senior scribe reaches toward another shelf. He selects an older roll. Then another. The papyrus has darkened slightly with age. The edges have softened after many years of careful handling. He gently unrolls them side by side. The apprentice watches with great interest. Thousands of neat symbols stretch across the sheets. Row after row. Season after season. Morning after morning. The older man points to one line. This was written when I was younger than you. The apprentice's eyes widen. So long ago. The senior scribe smiles. It doesn't feel long. He pauses. The river teaches us that years flow quietly. The apprentice studies the old handwriting. It looks different. Yes. Whose hand was that? My teacher's. And before him. His teacher. The young boy grows silent. For the first time he begins to understand how many people have quietly cared for these records before his own lifetime. He feels very small. Yet somehow the feeling is comforting rather than frightening. He is only one part of a much longer story. Outside the temple walls, another kind of work continues. Stonemasons shape blocks of limestone beneath simple shelters. The ringing sound of bronze tools striking stone carries softly through the warm air. Each strike is careful. Measured. The craftsmen know that one careless blow can waste many hours of work. Fine white dust settles upon their arms and shoulders. It gathers in their hair and clings to their linen clothing. One mason pauses to drink cool water from a clay cup. He wipes his forehead with the back of his hand before returning to his work. His apprentice kneels nearby collecting small stone fragments. The boy studies every movement. Occasionally he tries a careful strike himself. Not perfect, but better than yesterday. Improvement comes quietly. Across another courtyard, painters prepare fresh colors. Small bowls hold powdered minerals collected from different places. Deep red, warm yellow, soft white, dark black. They mix each powder with water and natural binders until smooth. One painter carefully decorates a wooden chest. His brush glides steadily across the surface. Lotus flowers begin appearing one petal at a time. No petal is rushed. Beauty grows slowly. The measuring man enjoys watching these craftsmen. Their work reminds him of the river. Each careful movement seems small, Together they create something lasting. As the morning approaches its middle hours, merchants begin arriving from nearby villages. Their boats are tied securely along the riverbank. Bundles of flax, jars of honey, fresh vegetables, dried fish, baskets filled with figs, clay lamps, wooden stools, coiled rope, simple sandals. The landing place becomes pleasantly busy. Voices remain calm. Trades are made with thoughtful conversation rather than loud bargaining. Most merchants recognize one another. They ask about families, about harvests, about the condition of canals farther upstream. One merchant asks quietly, "Has the river changed?" The measuring man nods. "A little." The merchant smiles. A little is often enough. He understands. His own village waits for the same slow rise. Children wander carefully among the market stalls. They watch potters arranging bowls. They admire polished copper tools catching the sunlight. One little girl becomes fascinated by a basket filled with bright blue beads. She reaches toward them but stops before touching. The merchant notices. He gently lifts one bead and places it in her hand. She studies it with quiet wonder. Her mother thanks him warmly. After a few moments the bead is returned to its basket. The child smiles all the way home. Not every treasure needs to be owned. Sometimes seeing it is enough. Near the riverbank, two brothers repair the roof of their small house. Fresh bundles of reeds are lifted carefully into place. One brother works above. The other hands up each bundle from below. Their conversation is mostly practical. A little farther. There. A little more. There. Good. The work continues. Simple. Steady. The roof will protect another family through another season of hot days and cool nights. The measuring man thinks about all these quiet tasks. Bread baked before sunrise. Canals cleared of mud. Fish caught at dawn. Stone shaped patiently. Records written carefully. Roofs repaired. Children taught. Every ordinary job joins every other ordinary job until the entire valley lives and breathes together. Few people ever see the whole picture. Each person simply tends to the work before them. Yet somehow it all fits together. The river flows through every part of it. Sometimes directly. Sometimes only through memory. As the sun climbs higher once again, warm light spreads across the rooftops. The coolness of early morning begins to disappear. Workers search naturally for patches of shade. Clay water jars become more valuable with every passing hour. The measuring man steps once more beneath the broad branches of the old sycamore tree. Its familiar shade welcomes him back. He sits quietly upon the smooth ground. From there he can see the river shining beyond the palms. He cannot read the water from this distance. The measurements belong to the dawn. The rest of the day belongs to living. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves overhead. Their soft rustling mingles with distant hammering, children's quiet voices, birds calling among the reeds, and the endless murmur of the Nile. The valley settles into another peaceful morning, carried forward by the same patient rhythm that has guided it for generations, while the river continues to move almost unnoticed, already preparing another small change that will reveal itself when the next dawn arrives. The shade beneath the sycamore tree grows smaller as the sun climbs higher into the sky. The measuring man notices the change without needing to look up. He has rested beneath this same tree through so many seasons that his body seems to know the movement of the light as well as it knows the sound of the river. He shifts only a little. Just enough to remain beneath the cool shadow. Around him, the village settles into the slower rhythm that always comes before midday. People continue working, but every movement becomes a little more measured. The desert sun asks for patience. It reminds everyone that strength is not only found in hard labor, but also in knowing when to pause, when to drink water, and when to let the body recover before beginning again. A clay water jar stands near the trunk of the tree. Someone has left it there for anyone passing by. Its rounded sides are cool to the touch. Tiny drops of moisture cover the outside, gathering from the difference between the cool water within and the warming air outside. The measuring man pours a small cup. He drinks slowly. The water carries a faint taste of the clay vessel that has held it since before sunrise. It is a familiar taste. Clean. Simple. Comforting. He replaces the cup exactly where he found it so that the next traveler will know where to reach. Not far away, a group of canal workers takes a short rest. Their wooden shovels lean against the bank. Their baskets sit upside down upon the ground, drying in the sunlight. The men remove their sandals and wash the mud from their feet in the gently flowing water. One laughs quietly as the cool current slips around his ankles. It always feels colder than I expect. His friend smiles. And tomorrow you will say the same thing. I probably will. The conversation fades into comfortable silence. One worker unwraps a small bundle of bread from a linen cloth. Another shares a handful of dates gathered from his family's palm trees. A third offers slices of onion. No one counts who gives more. Tomorrow another meal may come from another family. Sharing has become as ordinary as breathing. The measuring man watches them with quiet appreciation. The river feeds the fields. The fields feed the people. The people, in turn, care for one another. Everything seems connected in ways too gentle to notice unless one spends many years paying attention. Farther downstream, a ferry boat makes its slow crossing. It is little more than a broad wooden platform guided by two experienced boatmen. Several passengers stand quietly aboard. A woman carrying a basket of woven linen. An elderly man with walking staff in hand. Two merchants beside neatly tied bundles of flax. A young mother holding a sleepy child against her shoulder. The crossing is unhurried. The current nudges gently against the side of the boat. One boatman presses a long pole into the riverbed. The other steadies the vessel with careful strokes of his oar. Neither speaks much. They have worked together for many years. Their movements fit together as naturally as two hands carrying the same basket. The child resting against his mother's shoulder opens his eyes for a moment. He watches the water sliding quietly beneath the ferry. Tiny fish flash beneath the surface. Sunlight dances upon the ripples. Before long, the gentle rocking of the boat makes his eyelids grow heavy again. He falls asleep without realizing it. His mother smiles softly and adjusts the linen cloth covering his head from the strengthening sun. Along the shore, several boys gather fallen reeds. They carry small knives made of bronze, though most of their work requires only their hands. The reeds will be dried for many different uses. Some will become woven mats. Others will strengthen roofs. A few of the straightest stalks may someday be trimmed into writing reeds for young apprentices learning the careful art of making marks upon papyrus. One boy selects a particularly straight reed. He holds it up proudly. Look. His older brother examines it. That one will make a good pen. The younger boy beams with quiet pride. Such small successes matter. Not because the reed itself is extraordinary. Because someone with experience noticed his careful choice. Nearby, a woman gathers papyrus stems growing along the shallows. She cuts each one close to the water before tying them into neat bundles. Her hands move quickly but never carelessly. She knows exactly which stems are ready. Those that are too young remain where they are. Those that have grown too old are left for other purposes. Nothing is harvested without thought. Back in the village, the temple kitchens have become busy. Large clay pots rest above low fires. The scent of lentils slowly cooking drifts through shaded courtyards. Young servants grind herbs with smooth stone pestles. Others wash vegetables brought from nearby gardens before sunrise. The work is steady. One servant carefully slices leeks. Another stirs a pot using a long wooden spoon polished smooth by many years of use. An older cook tastes the broth. She adds only a little salt before nodding with quiet satisfaction. Meals for the temple workers must be ready before the afternoon labor begins again. The measuring man occasionally visits these kitchens. Not because he is important. Simply because everyone eventually passes through the same courtyards. Today he stops only long enough to greet the cook. She offers him a small piece of warm bread fresh from the oven. He accepts with gratitude. The bread is still soft. Its crust carries the pleasant smoky flavor of the clay oven. He eats slowly while continuing his walk. Across another courtyard, two young scribes practice writing. Each sits before a low wooden table. Each holds a freshly cut reed pen. Their teacher watches patiently. No. He smiles gently. Lift your hand a little. The first student adjusts his grip. Better. The second student frowns slightly as a drop of ink spreads across the papyrus. He sighs. The teacher shakes his head kindly. Papyrus forgives mistakes better than people imagine. The boy smiles. He begins again. Writing, like measuring the river, rewards calm hands more than hurried ones. The measuring man pauses outside the doorway. He remembers watching older scribes when he was a child. The flowing lines had seemed impossible then. Now they appear as familiar as footprints upon dusty roads. He realizes that every skilled hand was once uncertain. Every experienced worker once made simple mistakes. The thought brings quiet comfort. No life begins with mastery. The afternoon breeze begins arriving earlier than expected. It slips across the river and into the village streets. Loose strands of flax sway gently outside the weaver's workshop. Palm leaves rustle overhead. The breeze carries with it the rich scent of damp riverbanks mixed with dry desert earth. It is a fragrance unique to this valley. The smell of water meeting sand. Of fertile mud beside endless stone. Of green life growing within a golden land. The measuring man breathes deeply. He has known this scent since childhood. He cannot imagine another home. He wonders briefly about travelers who arrive by boat from distant villages. Do they notice the smell immediately? Do they carry memories of different rivers? Different winds? Different trees? The thought lingers only for a moment before drifting away like the breeze itself. His attention returns to the ordinary sights around him. A basket maker bends strips of reed into careful circles. His fingers work almost without looking. A little girl beside him tries copying the movements using much smaller pieces. Her basket leans to one side. She studies it seriously. The basket maker chuckles softly. It only needs patience. He gently loosens one strip. Then another. The shape improves. There. The girl smiles. It looks better. It does. She continues weaving with renewed confidence. The measuring man continues along the shaded street. Above him, pigeons gather upon flat rooftops. Some preen their feathers. Others simply rest, puffing themselves against the warm breeze. A cat stretches lazily upon a sunlit wall before curling into another afternoon nap. Life slows naturally during these hotter hours. Even the animals understand the rhythm of the day. Beyond the village, shimmering heat rises above the fields. The air itself seems to move. Farmers continue working where they must, though many have found brief shelter beneath palm groves or simple reed shelters built along the edges of their land. The irrigation canals continue their gentle work without pause. Water slips steadily between rows of grain. Tiny reflections dance across the leaves. The morning's measurement, already recorded upon fresh papyrus, quietly lives on here. In every channel. In every damp field. In every green shoot reaching toward the sunlight. The measuring man knows that tomorrow's number has already begun forming, hidden within the countless drops of water flowing silently past roots, reeds, boats, fish, and stone. The Nile never truly rests. It simply changes so slowly that only those who greet it every dawn can hear the full story unfolding one peaceful morning after another. As the afternoon quietly settles over the valley, the bright light of midday begins to soften almost too slowly to notice. The sun still stands high, but its warmth no longer feels as sharp as it did only a short while before. A gentle breeze continues to drift across the Nile, carrying with it the cool scent of water and the rich smell of dark river mud. The breeze slips through the palm groves, over the roofs of mud brick homes, and into narrow streets where it stirs fine dust before letting it settle once more. The measuring man leaves the shade of the sycamore tree and walks toward the northern edge of the village. There is no duty waiting for him there. Only another familiar path. He has always believed that understanding the river means understanding the people who live beside it. The water does not exist apart from their lives. It moves quietly through everything they do. The path passes several small gardens. Unlike the wide grain fields beyond the village, these gardens belong to individual families. They are carefully tended patches of green surrounded by low mud walls. Rows of onions push through the soft earth. Broad leaves of lettuce catch the afternoon light. Beans climb simple wooden supports made from straight branches gathered along the riverbank. A woman kneels beside a row of herbs. She loosens the soil with a small wooden tool no longer than her forearm. Beside her sits a little boy with serious eyes. He watches every movement. After a while she hands him the tool. "Would you like to try?" He nods eagerly. His first attempt is awkward. He presses too deeply into the earth. The woman gently guides his hands. "Not so hard." She smiles. "The plants already know how to grow." The boy laughs quietly. "I only help." "You only help." Together they continue tending the little garden. The measuring man watches for a moment before walking on. He enjoys seeing work taught with patience instead of hurry. The Nile has taught the entire valley that forcing nature rarely brings good results. Water arrives in its own time. Seeds grow in their own time. Children learn in their own time. Farther along the path, a pair of elderly brothers sit repairing fishing baskets. Their hands have become rough after many decades of weaving reeds. Even so, their fingers still move with surprising gentleness. Each new strip slides into place with careful attention. The baskets are almost beautiful in their simplicity. Strong enough to carry fish. Light enough to lift with one hand. Flexible enough to last through many seasons. One brother pauses. He studies the basket from every angle. Then he nods with quiet satisfaction. It should last another flood. His brother smiles. Perhaps two. They both chuckle softly. The measuring man greets them. One of the brothers asks the question that has become almost a daily habit. How is our old friend today? The measuring man knows he means the river. A little higher. The older man looks toward the distant shimmer of water. Good. He says nothing more. He has lived long enough to understand that small rises often become generous seasons. A little farther ahead, the path opens toward a wide stretch of riverbank. Several boats rest upon the shore where they have been pulled safely above the water line. Some belong to fishermen. Others carry grain or pottery between villages. One larger cargo boat is receiving fresh repairs. Its wooden hull has been turned slightly onto one side. 3 craftsmen work together beneath its curved body. One carefully removes an old peg. Another shapes a new one from a block of hardwood. The third seals narrow gaps with bundles of plant fiber mixed with warm resin. The air smells pleasantly of fresh wood and heated pitch. The measuring man kneels beside the boat. He runs his fingers lightly across the smooth planks. The wood bears countless small marks left by years of travel. Tiny scratches. Faint dents. Places where the sun has faded the grain. Each mark tells a quiet story. The oldest craftsman notices him. This boat has carried grain for 23 floods. The measuring man smiles. You remember every year. I remember every repair. They both laugh softly. For craftsmen, memory often lives in worn tools and weathered wood. For scribes, it lives upon papyrus. For the measuring man, it lives within the changing face of the Nile. The oldest craftsman straightens slowly. My father built her. He rests one hand upon the hull. And now my grandson helps repair her. The measuring man looks toward the young apprentice kneeling nearby. The boy cannot be more than 12 years old. His hands are stained with resin. His expression is deeply focused. He listens to every instruction without speaking. Another quiet lesson passing from one generation to the next. The afternoon continues to mellow. Clouds are rare above the Egyptian sky, yet the sunlight itself becomes softer. The harsh brightness fades into warmer colors. The river reflects those changes with gentle grace. Near the reeds, white lotus flowers rest upon broad green leaves. Some blossoms remain fully open. Others have already begun closing little by little as the day advances. Dragonflies continue darting between them. Their wings flash silver for only a heartbeat before disappearing again. A kingfisher suddenly dives. Its bright feathers vanish beneath the surface. For a brief moment the water breaks into widening circles. Then the bird rises again with the tiny fish held securely in its beak. It disappears toward the trees. The river becomes still once more. The measuring man watches with quiet appreciation. Nature follows its own routines every bit as faithfully as the people do. Nothing seems wasted. Nothing seems hurried. Nearby, a young shepherd leads a small flock of sheep toward fresh grazing. The animals move together almost as though they share one mind. A small lamb pauses beside the river. It studies its own reflection with great curiosity. The shepherd smiles. Gently. He guides the little animal back toward the others. The measuring man remembers doing similar work when he was very young. Before he learned the careful markings upon the stone steps. Before he understood the language of rising water. He had spent many afternoons watching goats wander wherever they pleased. Those years seem both distant and surprisingly close. Memory behaves like the river. Some moments drift far away. Others remain near the surface forever. As he continues walking, he hears the familiar tapping of stone against stone. A family is repairing the wall surrounding their courtyard. Heavy rains are uncommon here, but time slowly weakens even the strongest mud bricks. Fresh mud mixed with chopped straw has been prepared in a shallow pit. The mixture has rested long enough to become smooth and firm. The father presses each handful carefully into place. His daughter smooths the surface using a flat wooden board. His son carries more mud from the mixing pit. The youngest child watches everything with wide eyes. Occasionally she pats the wall with tiny hands. Her parents smile. Even her smallest effort is welcomed. The measuring man stops for a moment. It looks strong. The father nods. It should last many summers. He gently presses another layer into place. The wall grows a little each day. The measuring man thinks quietly about those words as he resumes his walk. The wall grows a little each day. The river rises a little each day. Children learn a little each day. Papyrus records grow one line at a time. Entire lives are built from changes so small that they often escape notice. He reaches a quiet bend where the river curves gently around a cluster of tall reeds. Few people come here during the afternoon. The place belongs mostly to birds. He sits upon a smooth stone warmed by the day's sunshine. The current slides peacefully before him. Floating leaves drift past. Occasionally a fish disturbs the surface. Otherwise, the river seems content to keep its own company. He thinks about tomorrow morning. Not with concern. Simply with quiet curiosity. Will the water rise another small measure? Will it remain almost unchanged? Will the breeze come from the north again? Will mist gather over the river before sunrise? He cannot know. That uncertainty has never troubled him. In truth, it is one of the reasons he loves his work. Every dawn offers something slightly different. Not dramatic. Not surprising. Only quietly new. As the afternoon slowly leans toward evening once again, the shadows of the palms stretch farther across the dusty roads. Birdsong changes. The voices of workers become fewer as families begin making their way home. The measuring man rises from the warm stone. He brushes a little dust from his linen garment. Then, with the calm patience that has guided countless mornings and evenings beside the Nile, he begins the familiar walk back toward the village, while the river continues its endless conversation with the land, whispering gently of another dawn that is already making its slow approach beyond the horizon. The path home is quiet in the gentle light of late afternoon. The measuring man walks at the same steady pace he has kept for many years. His shadow stretches long across the dusty ground, moving beside him like an old companion. The warmth of the day still lingers in the earth beneath his sandals, but the air has begun to soften, carrying the first promise of a cooler evening. Ahead, the village slowly changes from a place of labor into a place of rest. Doors that remained open through the day now stand half closed to keep the evening breeze inside. Families sweep the dust from their small courtyards. Children carry empty baskets back into storage rooms. Clay jars filled with water are placed near doorways where they will remain cool throughout the night. The measuring man enjoys this hour. Morning belongs to beginnings. Midday belongs to work. Evening belongs to returning. As he enters the first narrow street, he hears the steady scrape of a broom across packed earth. An elderly woman sweeps the front of her home with a bundle of dried reeds tied together with flax cord. The dust rises only a little before settling again. She notices him. "You've walked many roads today." He smiles. "The same roads as yesterday. And tomorrow. The same again." She laughs softly. "There is comfort in that." "There is." He continues on. The street bends gently between rows of mud brick homes. The walls glow with warm shades of amber beneath the lowering sun. Small cracks repaired many times over tell quiet stories of passing years. Fresh patches of smooth mud sit beside older sections that have hardened beneath countless summers. Nothing is perfectly straight. Nothing needs to be. The homes seem to have grown naturally from the earth itself. Outside one doorway, a father sits beside his young son repairing a pair of leather sandals. The straps have worn thin where they bend around the heel. The father pushes a bronze needle through the leather with slow, careful pressure. His son holds the strap steady. "When I am older," the boy says, "will I make my own sandals?" "You will. And yours." "If my eyes grow tired, perhaps." The boy grins. "I hope they don't." "So do I." The father finishes the final stitch. He pulls gently against the strap. It holds firm. There. They look new. They are old. The father smiles. They are simply ready for more walking. The measuring man nods quietly as he passes. Many things in the village are like those sandals. Old. Carefully repaired. Ready for another season. The evening breeze grows a little stronger. It slips through the narrow streets carrying familiar scents. Fresh bread cooling upon woven trays. Roasted onions. Smoke from cooking fires. Crushed herbs. The faint sweetness of ripe dates. Together they create an aroma that belongs only to the hour before sunset. Near the center of the village, a donkey stands patiently beside a wooden cart. The day's work has ended. The heavy sacks it carried earlier have already been unloaded into a storage room. Now it lowers its head while a young girl brushes dust from its coat. She speaks softly to the animal. "You worked hard today." The donkey flicks one ear. She continues brushing. "I will bring you fresh water." Whether the animal understands her words hardly matters. The kindness itself is enough. Beyond the market square, the day's trading is ending. Merchants carefully wrap the goods that remain unsold. Clay bowls are stacked one inside another. Bundles of flax are tied with fresh cord. Small bronze tools are wrapped in linen before being placed inside wooden chests. Nothing is left scattered overnight. Every object has its place. One merchant counts a small collection of polished stone weights before placing them into a leather pouch. Another carefully rolls a woven mat around the last basket of dried figs. Nearby, two merchants pause before returning home. "Will you travel north tomorrow?" "If the wind is kind." "And if it isn't?" "I will wait." The first man nods. The river always decides. Neither seems disappointed. Life beside the Nile has taught them not to argue with wind or water. Both deserve respect. The measuring man reaches the small square beside the village well. Several women have gathered there with empty jars. Their work is almost finished for the day. One lowers a clay vessel carefully into the water. Another steadies the rope. The jar rises slowly, shining with tiny droplets. Water spills gently over its sides before settling inside. The women speak quietly while they work. They exchange news of gardens, grandchildren, neighbors, and the coming harvest. Nothing sounds hurried. The conversations drift as gently as the breeze itself. One woman notices the measuring man. "Has the river been peaceful today?" "It has." "That is good." She smiles. "My cucumbers seem happier after the last few mornings." The river has noticed them too. The women laugh softly. The measuring man continues toward his home. As he walks, he hears music. Not loud. not meant for performance. A young shepherd sits beneath a palm tree playing a simple reed flute while waiting for his flock to settle for the evening. The melody rises slowly into the warm air. Its notes are long and gentle. They seem to wander without hurry, much like the river itself. Several children sit nearby listening. No one claps. No one asks for another tune. They simply enjoy the quiet sound while the sun continues its slow journey toward the horizon. The measuring man pauses beneath the tree. He closes his eyes for a few moments. The music mixes with birds returning to their nests, with distant voices, with the rustling of palm leaves, with the soft murmur of flowing water carried upon the breeze. Together they become part of the evening. Nothing stands apart. Everything belongs. When the melody ends, the shepherd lowers the flute onto his lap. The silence afterward feels just as beautiful. He nods respectfully toward the measuring man. The older man returns the gesture before continuing on. His house stands waiting at the end of the lane. His wife is seated outside upon a low stool spinning flax into thread. The spindle turns steadily between her fingers. A basket of clean flax fibers rests beside her feet. Each handful becomes smooth thread through slow, practiced movements. She looks up as he approaches. "You've been walking again." "I have." "Did the river enjoy your company?" "I believe it tolerated me." She smiles warmly. "That sounds like the river." She sets the spindle aside. Together they carry several baskets indoors before the evening meal. Inside the cool house, their daughter arranges small clay lamps. She trims each wick carefully. When darkness comes, only a little oil will be needed. Their son returns a few moments later carrying fresh reeds gathered for repairing part of the roof before the next flood season. He leans them neatly against the wall. They're straight. His father examines them. "They are. I chose carefully." "I can see that." The boy smiles with quiet satisfaction. No more praise is needed. The meal is simple. Warm bread baked only hours before. A stew of lentils and onions. Fresh cucumbers from the garden. Small pieces of roasted fish. Sweet dates for the end of the meal. They eat slowly. Outside, the light continues changing. Golden colors deepen into shades of amber and soft red. The Nile reflects the entire sky. Boats returning from the day's work glide toward the shore in peaceful silence. The measuring man watches through the open doorway. Each returning boat reminds him of another completed day. Each tomorrow will begin again before sunrise. Another quiet walk. Another careful observation. Another line of ink. He feels no weariness in the thought. Only gratitude. Many people spend their lives searching for work that feels meaningful. His purpose arrives every morning with the first light touching the river. As the family finishes eating, his wife pours cool water into small cups. The children help clear the table without being asked. Outside, neighbors begin lighting oil lamps. One by one, tiny flames appear throughout the village. Their warm glow reflects faintly upon polished pottery, smooth stone floors, and quiet faces preparing for another peaceful night. The measuring man steps outside once more. The western sky still holds a little light. Above it, the first evening star quietly appears. He notices it just as he always does. Not because it is extraordinary. Because it has become part of the rhythm he treasures. Morning begins with the river. Evening begins with the stars. Between those two quiet moments, another ordinary day has gently found its place among thousands of others, carried forward by patient hands, steady hearts, and the endless flowing waters of the Nile. The first evening star shines quietly above the western horizon. Its light is gentle, almost delicate against the fading colors of the sky. Around it, the deep blue of approaching night slowly spreads across the valley. The warm reds and golds of sunset become softer with each passing moment until they quietly disappear beyond the distant desert hills. The measuring man remains outside his home. He leans lightly against the smooth mud brick wall that has sheltered his family through many seasons. The warmth gathered by the wall during the day now slowly slips back into the evening air. He enjoys this gentle exchange. The earth gives back what it has held. Just as the river gives back rich soil after every flood. Nothing seems to keep anything forever. Across the narrow lane, neighbors sit outside their own homes. The cooler air has drawn everyone outdoors. One family shares the last pieces of fresh bread from the evening meal. Another carefully shells beans into a woven basket, preparing tomorrow's cooking. An elderly man slowly twists fresh flax fibers into strong cord while his granddaughter watches with quiet curiosity. Nobody appears hurried. The day's hardest work has already been completed. Now the village belongs to slower hands. The measuring man's youngest daughter joins him outside. She carries a small clay lamp whose flame dances softly whenever the breeze touches it. She places the lamp near the doorway. Its warm circle of light falls across the packed earth. Tiny insects soon begin circling above the flame. She watches them for a moment. They always come. They do. Even though it is only a little light. The measuring man smiles. A little light can be enough. The girl thinks about those words. She looks again toward the small flame. It seems brighter now that the sky has grown darker around it. She nods quietly, satisfied with her father's answer. From farther down the lane comes the steady sound of a spinning wheel. A woman sits beneath a simple reed shelter, turning flax into fine thread. The spindle rotates with remarkable smoothness. Her fingers draw the fibers gently apart before twisting them into a long, even strand. The movement hardly seems to require thought. Years of practice have turned careful work into quiet habit. Beside her, two older children braid rope from thicker fibers. Their hands move more slowly. Occasionally one strand slips loose. They simply begin again. No one becomes frustrated. Even mistakes feel peaceful in the evening. The measuring man has always admired that. People who spend their lives beside the Nile learn early that patience often accomplishes more than force. Across the village square, another family prepares bundles of dried reeds. The reeds were gathered during the afternoon while the sun still stood high. Now they are sorted by length. The straightest pieces will strengthen roof beams. The thinner ones will become woven sleeping mats. The soft tops will be saved for kindling. Nothing is wasted. Even the smallest pieces eventually find a purpose. The oldest member of the family sits nearby. His hands no longer weave as quickly as they once did. Instead, he tells the younger children how to recognize the strongest reeds. Look at the color. The children lean closer. Feel how firm it is. Tiny fingers carefully touch the smooth stalk. And listen. He bends one reed gently. It gives a soft, dry sound. This one has dried well. The children nod seriously. The lesson is simple. Tomorrow they will probably remember only part of it. Years from now they may remember every word. The measuring man watches with quiet appreciation. Knowledge moves through the village almost as gently as the evening breeze. No one gathers everyone together to announce great lessons. People simply work. Children watch. Questions are asked. Answers are given. One ordinary day after another. The moon rises above the eastern horizon. Tonight it is larger than it was only a few evenings ago. Its pale light spreads across the rooftops before reaching the river. Soon the Nile glows once again with soft silver reflections. The measuring man decides to take one final walk before sleep. His wife smiles when he tells her, "I thought you might. I won't be long." I know. She has never wondered why he enjoys these quiet walks. She understands that some people rest best indoors. Others rest beside flowing water. He follows the familiar path through the sleeping village. The streets are quieter now. Most children have already gone inside. Clay lamps burn gently in small windows. The smell of cooking has faded, replaced by the cooler scent of evening earth and river air. A dog lifts its head as he passes before settling back onto the warm ground. Several goats lie quietly inside their enclosure. They chew slowly, almost sleepily. The measuring man reaches the edge of the village where the path opens toward the Nile. The change in sound is immediate. The soft murmur of flowing water grows clearer. The rustling reeds seem louder now that human voices have faded. Somewhere downstream, an owl calls into the night. Its voice echoes briefly before disappearing into silence. The measuring steps wait beneath the moonlight. Their worn surfaces shine softly. The carved marks seem almost alive in the silver glow. The measuring man walks down only halfway. There is no need to approach the water itself tonight. Tomorrow morning will come soon enough. Instead, he sits upon one of the broad middle steps. The stone feels pleasantly cool. He looks across the wide river. Night transforms familiar places. The opposite bank becomes little more than a dark outline. Palm trees stand as quiet silhouettes against the star-filled sky. Occasionally a lantern moves slowly along the far shore. Perhaps another fisherman. Perhaps a traveler arriving late. Perhaps someone simply enjoying the cool night air. The river keeps their stories to itself. The measuring man breathes deeply. The scent of wet mud rises gently from the shoreline. It reminds him of the flood season. During those weeks, the entire valley smells richer. The earth becomes darker. The canals fill. Fields drink deeply. People watch the water with hopeful eyes. He remembers many flood seasons. Some generous. Some modest. Each one different. Yet every year the same careful routine begins long before the water reaches its highest point. The first small rise. The second. The third. One quiet measurement after another. Many people notice the flood only when it becomes impossible to ignore. The measuring man notices it from its earliest whisper. He has often thought about how strange that seems. A change no thicker than the width of his thumb can carry the promise of months to come. The stars brighten overhead. Without the noise of daytime work, the sky seems larger. He recognizes familiar patterns among the stars. His father once showed them to him during another quiet evening much like this one. They had sat together on these very steps. His father had pointed upward. The river below us flows north. He had pointed toward the sky. The stars above us keep their own paths. The young boy he had been asked, "Do they ever stop?" His father had smiled. "No. Not even when we sleep. They continue while we sleep." Now, so many years later, the measuring man looks upward again. His father has long since returned to the earth. Yet the stars continue their slow journey. The river continues its endless flow. Tomorrow morning he will once again place the measuring rod into the water just as his father once did. Perhaps one day his own son will stand upon these same steps before dawn. Perhaps another generation will quietly continue the work. The thought brings peace rather than sadness. Nothing truly lasting belongs to one person. It belongs to many careful hands across many quiet years. A cool breeze passes over the river. Small ripples spread across the moonlit surface. The reflections tremble gently before becoming smooth once more. The measuring men remain seated without moving. There is nothing to accomplish. Nothing to record. No decision waiting. Only the peaceful company of the Nile, the stars, and the cool night air. The village behind him grows even quieter. One by one, the lamps are extinguished. Families settle beneath linen coverings. Children drift into dreams after long days of helping in gardens, workshops, kitchens, and fields. The baker sleeps for a little while before waking again in the deepest part of the night. The fishermen guide their lantern-lit boats toward familiar places where the fish often gather. Temple guards continue their gentle rounds beneath silent stone columns. And the Nile, untouched by sleep or weariness, flows patiently onward through the darkness, carrying tomorrow's first measurement toward the waiting stone steps, where another peaceful dawn will slowly unfold. At last, the valley settles into its deepest quiet. The last lamp inside the village has gone dark, leaving only the soft silver light of the moon to rest upon the roofs of mud brick homes. The warm stones that held the day's sunlight slowly release their heat into the cool night air. Palm leaves barely move now, and even the gentle breeze seems content to wander without hurry. The Nile continues its endless journey. It asks for no applause. It leaves no farewell. It simply flows, just as it did long before today's measurement, and just as it will long after tomorrow's. Along the riverbank, the familiar stone steps wait peacefully beneath the stars. Their carved markings rest in silence. The wooden measuring rod lies safely beneath its small shelter, ready for another dawn that has not yet arrived. There is no need to think about it now. Morning will come in its own time, carrying its own gentle light and its own quiet work. Tonight belongs to rest. Inside the homes of the village, families sleep upon woven reed mats beneath light linen coverings. Children dream after long days spent carrying water, gathering reeds, helping in gardens, learning small skills from patient hands, and listening to the quiet voices of parents and grandparents. The baker sleeps for a few precious hours before another peaceful morning begins. The fishermen drift gently upon the dark water, their lanterns glowing like tiny stars that have settled upon the river. The scribes have rolled away their fresh papyrus, their careful writing safely stored among the memories of many seasons. The farmers rest their tired shoulders, knowing the fields will greet them kindly when daylight returns. The craftsmen lay down their tools. The potter's wheel stands still. The carpenter's bench grows quiet. The weaver's loom waits patiently. Nothing asks to be finished tonight. Everything can continue tomorrow. Above the valley, the stars keep their silent paths across the sky. The moon slowly climbs, then slowly begins its gentle journey downward again. Time moves softly here. Not in great leaps. Not in loud moments. Only in quiet mornings, warm afternoons, peaceful evenings, and restful nights, each one flowing gently into the next, just as the Nile flows through the heart of the land. Perhaps somewhere along the river, a fish slips beneath the smooth surface without leaving more than a small circle upon the water. Perhaps a heron stands quietly among the reeds with one leg tucked beneath its feathers. Perhaps a cool breeze carries the scent of damp earth across empty fields waiting for another sunrise. The ancient world breathes slowly. Nothing is rushed. Nothing feels forgotten. The river remembers. The stone remembers. The fields remember. The people, with their simple routines and gentle labor, become part of that quiet memory, one ordinary day at a time. And now, even those gentle sounds begin to drift farther away. The whisper of reeds becomes softer. The murmur of flowing water grows more distant. The quiet footsteps along dusty paths fade into stillness. The warm glow of distant lanterns disappears one by one until only moonlight remains upon the peaceful river. The Nile continues north beneath the silent stars. The village sleeps. The desert rests. The palms stand quietly against the night sky. And somewhere beyond the horizon, another dawn patiently waits, while the whole valley settles into perfect calm, wrapped in the endless rhythm of flowing water, cool night air, and the comforting silence of ancient Egypt.